we can open and look at quite a few scripture, I think, this morning, maybe. We'll just have to see. But we're going to start out with Genesis 2:7, but then we'll look at Genesis 1 again, Genesis 1:26, just to lay the foundation. But I want to say something about a few of the things we talked about yesterday, and that is I think one of the number one things that everybody, and it doesn't matter to me race, color, creed, it doesn't matter to me what religion or what ideologies they have or have had, that's the worst thing that we could ever have had done to us, and that was put a religious claw in our brain. And so we have that. Unbeknownst, many times we may say, I don't have a religious preference or a religious idea, but most people, even if they're atheists, even if they're that, they still have religious ideologies, and especially that one word that we talk about, God. That one word. That's such a difficult word to get beyond, and yet at the same time, it's almost necessary to use. And so, but when it's used and anyone says that, it's like me, if I say God, immediately you paint a picture in your mind of your idea of God. And so that's one of the worst things that we have ever had done to us, is to have an idea of God, because it's hard to remove ourselves from that. So, I mean, what is God? I mean, God is everything, and God is nothing. And so that's definitely a paradox, isn't it? It's a conundrum. It's hard to think, how could God be everything? Our minds don't have the ability to think about that. And many of the stories that are told in Genesis, without the proper instructions through initiation, we can't understand those stories, because our brains will automatically reject them. Your brain automatically rejects the idea of a talking snake. Did you know that? You can't even convince your brain that a snake can stand up and talk. Your brain of its own self. Nobody has to train you that. Nobody has to teach you. Of your brain's own ability to cognize or to think, it can't do that. It cannot imagine a snake to stand up and talk, because you know that it doesn't. So these stories that we read about in Scripture, without proper instructions as to how these stories are meant to be understood, then we draw false ideas and concepts. And those false ideas are just like a noose around our neck. And that noose around our neck will draw us back, hold us back, pull us under. It does so many things unbeknownst to us. We don't even realize it's happening to us, but it happens to us pretty much on a constant basis. So one of the major things is to deliver ourselves from the idea of God being a man, thinking that if I'm made in the image of God as a human being, then God must have human being parts. And this was one of the major things that Dave taught us way back 40-something years ago, was that, and he would go through, sit at God's right hand. Well, I mean, right hand, automatic. You think that God has to have a left hand. If he's got a right hand, he's got a left hand, because you think in anatomy, right? That's how we think. And so when you use these illustrations, they're not trying to describe the anatomy of a old gray-headed man out somewhere out in space. That's not all what they're trying to do. But those descriptions, unless we have the right instructions to see what they're saying, the right hand meant authority. Had nothing to do with the right hand. It was just, that's a symbol of authority. So even if you're left-handed, your right hand is the symbol of authority. Even if you're left-handed, they said, when you swear, hold up your right hand. But I write with my left hand. Hold up your right hand. It's a symbol. That's all it is. It's a sign. And so, but if we don't know how to read the signs, obviously we can't follow the directions. And that shouldn't be hard, but many times it is hard for us to do it. So yesterday I talked about the law first mentioned. And I told you image. That was the first place image was mentioned. And we talked a little bit about it, talked a little bit more about it this morning. Man, that was the first place it was mentioned. And if you remember, we talked about man, Adam, Aleph, Dam, the word dam is the word blood. Aleph is always a glip that stands for the manifest or the ideology of a universal energy. An energy that's behind everything. A power that's behind and beyond all power. And so we call that God. Not a man, but we call it God. Simply to mean it's all powerful. But also it means it's everywhere and nowhere. In other words, it's not restricted to one place. It is everywhere present, period, no matter where it is or where it's not. It's still there. And so that's why in Hindu or in some of the ancient Buddhist philosophies, they call it no thing. But in a Western mindset, or American mindset, or Christian mindset, to say no thing, we think of nothing. But it don't mean that it's nothing. It means that nothing is everything. And in Hebrew, it's called a saya. That's a Hebrew term, a saya, which means no thing, or no thingness. But no thingness is everything. We have another word we call the void. Y'all have heard that, the void, the great void. But the void is not empty. The void is filled, but it's empty. See, all of these are conundrums, and I know that. They're paradoxes. And until we entertain these thoughts, and they get used to thinking like that, after you get used to thinking like that, then it's nothing to think like that, because it's everything. Okay, so we'll start out here. This is the first place that this particular Hebrew glyph or this word is used. So we'll look at this Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. So go there with me if you can, if you would. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. And let's just read this. Genesis 2:7. I got a fly in my throat. It says, and the Lord God, excuse me, I think I did swallow a gnat. You all got a gnat in your throat? Yeah. Now this term, there's so many terms that, oh, that's good. So many terms that we aren't familiar with, but are familiar with our idea of the term, like Lord God. That's a difficult term, but actually both words mean the same thing. Both words mean something of an energy system, and the other one means the material manifestation of that energy system. So these are terms that we have to get familiar with. So the Lord God, verse 7, the Lord God formed, that's the Hebrew word yitzar, which actually just simply means to squeeze or to mold. Adam, man, Adam, out of dust, that's the Hebrew word afar, the word afar. You can hear that at the end of it is the Hebrew rash. The rash is 200 in value. It actually means light or fire or that. Light or fire. So when you hear that word fire, then you realize that whatever this word is about, it's about light. So when you see dust, it's referring to light particles. You wouldn't think it would mean light particles. You'd automatically think it means dirt. I mean, that would just be a common way of thinking about it. So if they just said light particles of the ground, the word ground is not eretz, like we think of earth. That's the Hebrew word eretz. That's how we think of dirt, which that don't mean dirt either. That's how we think. This word ground is adamah. It's Adam with an additional ayin on the front of it, adamah. And so what does that mean? Adamah is a miracle substance. It's a substance that's made up from all light particles that creates material things manifest. You hear that? Now, just things to put in your brain. Just, smoke this stuff a little bit. You can get high on it, but just entertain it a little bit. And I realize if you think in the ground, I know what we think because of words. And for me, now that I have learned these things, it's not a big deal or it's not a problem for me to read them and think literal. I don't have to do that no more. I think, okay, there's spiritual, mystical meanings behind this. Breathe. Neshama, that again, neshama, we're going to talk about that word in just a few minutes. Neshama, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And so that word soul, I just want to put that on there, that's nafesh. So I want to put this word nafesh on the board, and we're going to talk about it. We'll look at it just a little bit here in a minute. Nafesh. That's a non. Right? Sheen. Nafesh. Non-face sheen. And I'm going to put that up there because it doesn't mean a whole lot to you at this point in time, but as you learner, we understand the glyphs and how they're put together to form what we call a word. And this equals so. Then it begins to mean more to us. So. And so, the soul is misunderstood for the most part. The spirit is misunderstood for the most part. And so I wanted to get more clarity as to how they are used, as to how they kind of work like a husband-wife, kind of like a team, like a right and a left, how they work in unison. And so as we see that, I think as we begin to see how they begin to work, well, then things begin to fall in place and are clearer. And so that's the main thing, is to get a clearer picture and to try to free up some of the muddy water that we have been diluted under. I want to put my wheel back up here, and I wanted to do it again this morning, similar to how we did it yesterday. You have to have the divine cross, which deals with the equinox. This is material, the plane of the materiality, the plane of manifest. That's what that line equals, the manifest. And of course the cross, I don't know why Christianity wanted to adapt the cross and claim it as their only signal, sign, and hang a man on it. The cross has been one of the most ancient symbols and signs that there has ever been. It's everywhere in all cultures and all parts of the world, the cross. And of course, the horizontal and the vertical both have a great representation. The horizontal is the flat line represents the feminine energy. The straight up line, the phallic, represents the masculine energy. It's always those two energies are built and they're designed to commingle. They're designed, they're built that way to come together and to commingle. Okay, so what does all that have to do with the soul? Well, again, let's do it this way so that we will have a good picture. I always heard, and so I got the revelation that a picture's worth 1,000 words. So this can say more than 1,000 things. And when Annie did this yesterday, it just really hit me. It lit my mind up when she did this little thing right here. And I thought, wow. I thought, let's just leave it like that. Do you know why? God, that spoke volumes to me. When I take this eraser and I erase this center where all of these things are crossing and coming together, wow, that opened up a vortex in my thinking. In my mind, it opened up a huge vortex just to leave that circle without anything in the center of it. Because actually that's the no thing. That's the everything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the vortex. That's the world of where everything comes from. But then we carry it carried another step further and said, well, you know, Ezekiel had a wheel in a wheel. And you know, Ezekiel talks about the Merkabah. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot about the Merkabah. My ideologies and my take on the Merkabah and the Nephiel, which I know you probably, a lot of you have heard teachings on the Nephilim. The Nephiel, which is used in Genesis 6 of the word for giant. It's only used twice for the word giant, and then there's six other different places that another word is used for the word giant, but actually simply means large in stature. But the Nephiel, or the Nephilim, has nothing to do with stature. It would be like saying Mahatma Gandhi was a giant. Now, can that resonate with you if I say Mahatma Gandhi is a giant? Well, if you ever watched the movie of Mahatma Gandhi, you would see that Mahatma Gandhi was a 100-pound Indian guru. 100 pounds. Little bitty man. But that little bitty man, 100 pounds, brought the entire British Empire down on its knees without doing anything. That's what I call a giant. That's exactly what a Nephilim is. It has nothing to do with bodily stature. It's what I call the non-words. Like, for instance, the word soul. The word soul starts with the non. Words that start with, or glyphs that start with the non, have phenomenal meaning behind them, but it has nothing to do with physical stature. And when I say that, I'm not saying that there haven't been people with large stature, but I can say this from the original Hebrew. Anybody that tries to say the Nephilim or the Nephiel are giants don't understand what they're saying. They just don't understand the Hebrew. And that's all. It's not a disrespectful statement against them, because I understand I can go on YouTube and I see all kinds of bizarre things said about Genesis 6 that have nothing to do with Genesis 6. If we could ever get Genesis 6 clearly tucked away inside our hearts and our minds, it would open up another world for us of great possibilities. So, anyway, the Naphesh, which is a non-word, is called soul. And it has its root in another word, and that word is right here. I'll show it to you, and I want you to watch this word. It says, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed. Everybody say, breathed.
Breathe.
Breathe. Everybody say, neshama.
Neshama.
Nesh. See, I mean, you know, you can hear the resemblance in Naphesh, soul, neshama. As a matter of fact, neshama is spelled similar to soul, but different. And so what is the neshama? Now I want to use myself again. I was born on February the 19th. That would be right here. F-E-B. February the 19th. That's when I was born. That's the cuff of the sign between Aquarius and Pisces. So for me, which one do I take? Am I an Aquarian or a Piscean? I said, yeah. Anybody born on the cuff, you take energy from both signs. It's just the way it is. If you're born the day before, the day of, or the day after, so you're out on the cuff, you take the energies from both signs in certain degrees. And to understand this, to get a picture of this wheel, because I call this the wheel of powers, the wheel of El, or the Elohim. This is the true Elohim. This is the true God. And if we ever put that into our pipe and our mindset, and we begin to get a grasp of that, then we begin, there's not anywhere that you can't look out into space or out into the universe and not see God, because everywhere you look, no matter where you look, God is. That's just the way it is. So, I mean, I can look out there, and so I'm not trying to reduce God to any one thing. I don't make God an idol of anything. I don't make God a man of anything. I realize that God is, and that's unlimited, period. And so when I look at this, I realize everything this is, I am. I can't not be. Why? Because every day the sun moves through this wheel. period. It moves 12 hours from here to here in the daytime and 12 hours from here to here at nighttime. It's still there. You know, whether it's the sun moving or the earth turning, its exposure is to this energy that's everywhere, all the time, complete, lacking nothing, and I am a vital part of that. If that weren't so, I wouldn't be, nor would you, period. You can't not be. Well, here's the thing that I want you to watch and I want you to grasp, and you can do this for your own self. You can find it out for how God has built you. Hold your place right here in Genesis 2, and if you would go with me to Isaiah 14 just real quickly. I may use something in a minute from that Moffat, if you have that Moffat. You know, that Mafia Bible. I love Moffat because Moffat was a real accurate German scholar, and he actually quoted things from the original Hebrew accurately more than most of the translation. So when you go to Moffat's and you're looking at ancient Hebrew, he hit the nail right on the head in many places. And he was very controversial also in some of the things that he did and some of the things that he said. And so I'm going to use something that Moffat said and did here in just a minute. But go with me to Isaiah 14, and I want you to look at something. And this is awesome if you can just entertain it and let it resonate inside your being. Just let it ruminate. Just let it soak in there. Just marinate with it. Verse 24, Isaiah 14 and verse 24. And of course, you know, this is the only place in the King James Bible, and it is the only Bible that does use the term Lucifer, which is actually, this is talking about light, and it's talking about the vessel, the vehicle of light. It's using a king to describe as this vessel or vehicle of light, but it actually is you and me. It's us. We are that. Verse 24 says, "And the Lord of hosts," if you take that word host, you'll find it first mentioned in Genesis chapter 2. You don't have to turn over there with me. We'll go back over there in just a minute. But you'll find it first mentioned there in the first verse of Genesis chapter 2. The heavens and the earth were furnished, and all the hosts. Now, that's a phenomenal word, and I actually did a teaching on it, several weeks of teaching. These are the hosts. The 12 watchers. The 12 angels. The 12 sons. The 12 tribes. The 12 gates. The 12 apostles. Each sign represents a post. That's what that word actually means, apostle. We call it apostle. I mean, I can go on and on, but do you kind of get the hint of what I'm trying to say? It comes back to this. Well, what are the hosts? Well, that's God. God is the host. And these are called so many different names. So here we go. Verse 24 says, "And the Lord of hosts," remember the word Lord. I divide this into 4 divisions. I take 4 different pieces of this pie. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, that's the Lord. It's still talking about the whole ball of wax. It's still talking about you. "So the Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, Surely I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand." Now, I want to just say this at this moment, and I want you to just really marinate with this. Think about this. You are the manifest presence of that purpose. Period. You're not a mistake. You're not an afterthought. You're not all of the other things that religion tries to tell you that you are. In other words, you're good, you did this, you did this, you did this, and all of the other things that they want to make you feel so bad and just say, come at the cross, kneel down here, pray the prayer that we have you to pray, and you're going to be okay. You are okay. That doesn't mean that you don't have opportunities of learning. You know what we call an opportunity of learning? We're so dumbed down, we call them a mistake. There's not anything that's ever been a mistake. There are many great opportunities to learn how not to do something. But it ain't no mistake. It's an opportunity to find out how it don't work. And and some people make a lot of those opportunities to find out how it don't work. I've done that so many times, it's ridiculous. But you know what? Eventually, I finally catch on. And I'd have to admit that I would be one that would be slower than some of the other ones. I have that. I'm not the sharpest bulb in the drawer. There's some other bulbs a whole lot brighter than me, but I finally learned. Well, we can grasp this, and I want you to get it. Look at it. He just hammers at it. So shall it come to pass, as I have purposed, so shall it stand, that I will break the Assyrian in my land, upon my mountain, tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, as his burden departs from off of their shoulders. This is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth. And this is the hand that is stretched out from all of the nations, for the Lord of hosts has purposed this. If you put yourself in that picture right there, and you look at this wheel right here of powers, and you'll realize this wheel of powers is the Lord of hosts, and the Lord of hosts has purposed you and deposited you in the earth for such a time as this right now. Hallelujah. Now, I want to give you an idea of how this beautiful design of purpose works. And you can help me with it if you will look at it with me. On this sign right here, May the around this date. This is somewhere around this date, May the 21st, or somewhere between I could say somewhere between May the 18th and the 24th, somewhere in that week. Rachel and James Hayes copulated. And a seed from James Hayes was released, and that seed lodged in Rachel. I want you to get that. Can y'all see that clear? I want you to see that. That seed was released and it lodged in Rachel Hayes, Rachel Brock Hayes' womb. And do you know what that had in it? It had the purpose and it had the design of the host to manifest voila. Wasn't a mistake. Nothing about it was a mistake. It really wasn't even something that they planned. It was. God planned it. The host had planned it. Now, that right there is called my soul. That's my soul. That is my soul. My soul was sent out from this divine design with this purpose in mind that I would be what I'm designed and built to be. You could put yourself in there and find you at your place. It's not really hard. Just take where you're born, and just count backwards on the wheel 9 months, and you're pretty close within that. What is it? 40 weeks gestation period, and that's pretty well the normal time. You'll find that to be very accurate, somewhere around 40 to 42 weeks, 41 weeks, but mostly 40 weeks. That'll be the gestation period. Some kids will come a week early, some a week late, but they're going to be pretty close in that period of time. So that's my soul. So what was my soul doing? My soul listen to this, my soul in my mother's womb was building a temple, a tabernacle that had already been designed by the Lord of hosts, by God itself, God Almighty. And you know why God was building it? You know why God was designing it? God was building it and designing it as a place that He's going to live. And he's going to live all of the days that I manifest in this dimension at this point in time through me. And the same thing's true about you. Everybody, period. Every human being, every one of us. And that soul carries that intent, carries that design, and it carries that purpose. Now, another marvelous thing happened, and this thing happened 9 months later. 9 months later, after I'm being built, how many of you have ever seen anybody that goes and moves into their house while the contractor and the builder are out there laying the footer down, putting the floors down? Have you ever gone out there and moved into the thing and put your bed up and started sleeping in it? You don't move into it until it's finished, right? Think about that. No, you don't move into the house, you don't move into the temple until the temple is built, until the temple is furnished, until it's ready. Then you move in. 9 months later, guess what? On this date, February the 19th, here's what happened. Mama coughed me out, and when Mama pushed me out of the womb into this dimension, the first thing I did was neshama. Breathe. What happened when I breathed? Then the ruach, the spirit, joined the soul in the journey of the manifestation of this particular person. And this is the same thing's true with you. There's no mistakes made. Everything is perfect and everything is designed the way it's to be designed. I just don't know how to tap into all that I am, because you see, this wheel represents all that I am and all the powers that I have. And if I can get this is the Elohim, this is God, this is the Lord of hosts. It's from this I draw my being, period. It's from this that I live, I move, I breathe, and I have my being. From the Elohim, from God, from the source. Now that is a divine design. And really I wanted, Annie, if you would, I wanted you to take this. And I want you to look up Exodus for me. That's the Moffat's translation. I want you to look up a passage in that Moffat's translation. See, I think I wrote it down somewhere. I think it's Exodus chapter 3. It's Exodus chapter 19. Look that up in the Moffat's translation. I want you to read something for me. Exodus chapter 10. Exodus chapter 10 and verse 19. And just read what it says. And I want to show you why. This symbol with these colors, and I did these colors on purpose because this symbol and these colors, the green and the red represents fire, which always represents the spirit, always represents the power of the manifest, fire, and that's why the pyramid is always pointing upward. This other pyramid that's downward, one of them's male, material, green, is pointed downward because it represents water. And that's the one thing you'll find when you find this word soul and you find this word spirit, ruach, you'll find that one of them has the ingredient of water and you'll find the other one has the ingredient of fire. That's just the way the Hebrew words are written. Did you find that Exodus 10:19? Just read that out loud. What does it say?
Moses left the Pharaoh and besought the Eternal. And the Eternal now made a furious west wind, which caught up the locust and whirled them into the Red Sea.
Into the what?
The Reed Sea.
There you go. Did you notice how she said that? Did you notice how she read it? She just run right past it. We all do the same thing. Because you see, it's not the red, R-E-D-C. In Hebrew, it's the reed, R-E-E-D. It's not a typographical error. It's a visible error. Because we would do just exactly like she just did. We would read right across that and read red because that's what we've been taught. That he crossed the Red Sea. That's not what they did. They crossed the Reed Sea. Do you have any idea what color a reed is?
Green.
We ought to. A reed is green.
Green, yeah.
They're green. So actually the water looked green. And so why? Because it's the water that is referring to the material manifest world. That's why it uses green. That's very important that we get that, and we realize Moshe, drawn up out of water, it's drawn up out of this. That's the construction of the physical body, the home that God desires to live into. And this home is made from you and me. We are this home. It's made as the image. And the word image, and this is where we were at yesterday, about this word image. I just wanted to throw that little, because Moffat is one of the very few that does, since you brought that Moffat in yesterday, the Moffat's one of the very few translations that does get a lot of the Hebrew accurate. And so it helps sometimes to see clear. So Moses and the reed, R-E-E-D-C, that whole story is a story about you. And here's what the story is more about. The story is more about you finding all of the turmoil and the struggle of your heart, but you are the one who will eventually, by trusting the Lord of hosts, you will have to cross the heart, the reed sea of your own being. And when you do that, you have to come to the place that you live from your heart and not your head. Because the more you live from your head, the more you begin to wander and spin around and around and around, and go around the bush and around the bush for 40 years, 40 again, same thing. Material, stuck in the material world of constant changing, constant this, that, and other, just getting stuck there. But when we learn to live from the heart, and we find this place, the crossing of the reed sea, the crossing of my own heart, and I begin to stand at that place where I've merged the green and the red, and I have a united force, a power inside me, and that power inside me is a power not just to keep me, but that's a power that will take me any and everywhere that God designed me to go. Okay, now let's go back over there where we were at Genesis. Genesis chapter 2. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. The word breathe there is neshama. Breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And here again, James deposited me, and God, the soul, the Lord, began to build me. Built me and finished the temple. And when he finished the temple, Mother pushed me out of the garden. Gan, that's the Hebrew word gan. You know what that word means? Protected place. It's one of the safest places in the world, right there in the womb of your mom. You're right there in that river, in that lake, in that water. She pushed me out and said, oh, Lord, now look what. So here I am. But you see, I didn't come alone. Now then I have the Spirit, breath, ruach. Now I have the Spirit and the power that it represents to be me. And a child understands this. We don't understand it because we have been dumbed down because of the different things that has happened to us. So back over to Genesis chapter 1, and then we're going to launch into a little bit different of a direction here. Or not different, but just to add a few things on to what we've been saying. Image. Image. Let me put the word up here for image on the board here so that we'll have a clear picture of it. That's the Tasada, has a 90 value. And the Lamid has a 30 value. And that's the final meal. Now, let me do this right here. These two glyphs are really close. They look like the English G, but they're not. And the best way you can see them is the vast difference in their numerical value. But when you're reading, like if you're reading the Torah, if you're looking at the Torah, and it's just these glyphs, clear in distinction, you have to understand. This one's basically square with a little ear on it. And this one right here looks just exactly like a English G, you know, with the two circles and a G, but it's flat at the bottom. This one's 40, this one represents 40 in value, and this one represents 600. This one always represents salt water, and this one always represents fresh water. So if I'm spelling heaven, all I would do is I would add a sheen, which is a 300 value. And I would add a yod. The smallest glyph is a yod, which is a 10 value. 10. And again, 10, you remember yesterday I showed you that 10, the numbers that always represent 10 is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Either way, you look at either of those numbers, whether it's 4 or 7 or 10, it's always referring to the physical body that's both male and female. It's androgynous, period. That doesn't mean that it has to have a sexual organ that's male and female. It's distinguished if it's a male that has a penis, if it's a female that has a yoni, but you have a male and female brain, you have right and left arm, right and left legs, right and left lungs, right on. Those are masculine and feminine. Those are the positive and negatives. You have to have those, right? So, now this word right here, image, and y'all can ask me a question anytime. I'm going a little slower. Image, and then we're going to get to this one, and dream. Image, the image is important. I mean, if you said I am as the image of God, and you looked at a mirror, and all you thought of, as you looked into that mirror, all you thought of is your physical form, then you didn't get what this word means, image. It hasn't got anything to do with your physical form. That's just the suit that you wear. The thing that you really are as the image is all of this. Because all of this astrological wheel, the 12 powers, all of these 12 powers are what built you, and therefore there's not any part of these powers that's not you. They are you. So you have to, when you see this word image and you think of this word image, quit thinking of that thing you see in the mirror. Think more of that which you see all around you and about you that represents the Elohim, because that is the Elohim, because it's the Elohim that created the image, and the image was to reflect the Elohim, not your physical body.
That's right. We're the unseen, not the seen.
Yes. 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 So again, when you look in the mirror and you're looking at you, you're looking at what you think is your physical body is you are not seeing you. If you look in the mirror of the universe. Look in the mirror of the wheel of powers. You're all powerful. And there's something that I have people constantly ask me this. I mean, they'll send me emails off the mailing list. They'll call me and say, you know, I've listened to you and I've heard this, and I don't even know how to pray anymore. And I said, well, that's good. They said, no, that's bad. No, it's a good thing. You all remember that? What was it?
In the barber shop?
In the barber shop, yeah, he tell you. He said there to get his haircut. Oh, that's good. No, that's bad. What's she making? Oh, that's good. No, that's bad. So anyway, when we start to see this image and we realize that it's not that I'm looking at in the mirror, I realize that it's all of these things right here. And when people call me and say, I don't know how to pray anymore, I said, that's wonderful. I said, because you see what we do, we all do this. It is a religious claw that's in our brain. We always want God's man or woman of power for the hour What for? Why? Does that person have something you ain't got? No. That's the entire problem. No one has something you don't have. But we're constantly, just exactly like the religious people of the old, just like the religious people of now, we're constantly looking for somebody else who's got it, because I ain't got it. That is a lie that you have been taught to believe. You believe that mess. You have everything. If you're going to pray, pray yourself. Nobody knows you as well as you. Nobody knows what's going on in you any better than you. You know how to pray for you. I don't encourage people not to pray. I say, I pray as much or more than I ever did. But it's not so much as I'm just praying for me or for you or whatever. Many times I find this, I find myself going down the road many times, and all of a sudden, God's just somehow or another got caught in the party, and I do this probably more in my car or in my studies more than any other time, and all of a sudden I may just get, and I just get caught up in this gibberish. You know what we call it? Other tongues. I could care less what you call it, because there's not a language. There's not a voice. There's not an unction on the earth that God don't know.
That's right.
Psalms 19, I read it to you yesterday. And many times said that way through gibberish, I get far greater response than I do. Oh God, I just need you so bad you don't understand. I'm just in this hell of a mess. I really need you to help me. Y'all ever been there? I do. I get caught right there. But when we learn that we are the image, you put yourself anywhere in there you would like, because you will fit there, and you are as much as the image. I didn't just incubate right here and make me any different than any of you. I think Annie was deposited here, incubated around, and came out here. And I'm not sure, different ones. I know my granddaughter is exactly the opposite. She was deposited here and incubated and come out here. I mean, I can do my grandkids, my daughters, and people I know, I can do them on the wheel, and I can see where, it doesn't matter where they were deposited. Because you see, there's not a day that you don't go by that the wheel, the power is not imparting itself in you. So we have the whole ball of wax. No matter who you are, what we think we don't know, the soul knows it all. You remember it says, I'll bring back to your remembrance. What? All that stuff I forgot when I come into this physical form, and I forgot it, I still know it. And it's inside me if I will draw it. I can if I will. I can reach down in there and pull that out of me because it's in me. It's a divine design of essence. So that's the image. That's what the image is. Whatever the wheel of power, astrological wheel of power, the Mazzaroth, whatever it is, I am. And I know that's probably putting me way out there on a limb of hypocrisy or whatever, but I don't really care. I'm just trying to make a point that get us to see both God different and see myself as the image of God different. I got to see myself as God sees me. I got to see myself as God built me. I got to see myself as God I am. So, that's hard to say, isn't it? Yeah, God, I know it is. Yeah. Until you said it a little bit, and then it sounded okay. It don't sound too bad. I might could do that. That'll be all right. Now Genesis 37:5. Real quickly, I'm just bumping through this, and real quickly, Genesis 37:5. It says, says Genesis 37:5, and Joseph dreamed. Joseph dreamed. Now, I'm going to put the word dreamed up here in Hebrew. And I want you to pay a lot of attention to this, and I want you to notice how close that the image, I've been hammering at that. I'm trying to go overboard at hammering on the image, and I'm trying to go overboard at hammering on God. Because the image and God are basically, in the manifest world, the same thing. And that's what I really want you to grasp. If you can grasp that more, and you begin to realize that you are as the image of God. But what is God? God is the astrological wheel, the Mazzaroth, the power of all powers. None or nothing left out. That's who you are. And then look at dream. And this is something that most people do at night. You know, you can have daydreams, and they're not any different, because a dream is a dream. A dream is when you get out of your physical, limited consciousness into your unlimited consciousness, right? Because when you're in a dream, you're just way out there. Usually you're out there doing some strange things or having strange experiences. I know Beverly was sharing her dream. She had a dream last night. We all had a dream last night. We just probably forgot it. Because dream is a very normal thing of sleep. It's a very normal thing of sleep, because dreaming, getting into this state or this stage, this is the Che'at and Lamid and final meal. See how the only difference is the first clip. That's the only difference in those two different glyphs. The Che'at had this one has it has that value. And this one right here, it has this value, 9. This one, the image, has to do with the feminine energy, number 9, feminine energy of reproductivity in a dualistic world, or a world where the divine dance is taking place, or the manifest world. So when you see the Tasada, that's what basically the Tasada is referring to. It's referring to that feminine energy that constantly is dancing in reproduction. And that's you. It's happened for me. This one right here, the Che'at, number 8, that has to do with the perpetuating or the continuation of something. We usually put this, I think the figure 8 is used as the, what's the word I'm looking for?
Infinity.
Infinity sign. That's generally they'll lay it sideways, you know, and that's a good way to do it, the infinity sign. And so that's what it means. It actually, infinity just means infinity. It's non-ending.
Never ending.
Non-ending. And so when it's the single digits, you have in Hebrew, you have 1 through 9 are all single digits. All of the single digits in Hebrew, which is the first row of them, the Aleph through the Tasada, they all have to do with the design plan or the architectural print. So when you see any of the single digit numbers, they deal with architectural printing, or how this is the stamp. This is it. This is who you are. This is boom. So, but when you see them with a 0, dual, 2, then they have to do with that design now in manifest world. So they're now in the material world. So now they're manifest. Then when you see them brought back to the double 0, now they have to do with cosmic or divine purpose. In other words, we went from a blueprint architect, we built a house, then we moved into it and made it purposeful.
Okay.
So it's complete. So when they have, so it's the most phenomenal thing when you grasp these. They're just little keys. You got to understand. This gathering together this morning, there's probably anywhere from 10 to 100,000 gathered here in this little gathering. Why is that? It's many times because the effect that we are on small portions give us an ability, because we're here as initiates. We're being initiated. We're being trained. We're being taught in a higher school of learning. You cannot go to the masses and say this. Jesus stood before the masses and said it. We could go over to Mark chapter 4. I can show it so clearly. He spoke to the masses, and then the disciples gathered around and said, Master, we didn't understand. What did you mean? You spoke all that in parables. He said, come on in the house. Look where we're at. We're in the house. What did he say? Come in the house. I will explain to you what that means. See, that's where we're at here. I can't explain to the masses what this means, because when I say it, it shoots above their head. It shoots right through them and around them. Why? They don't have an ear to hear it. Do they have ears? Yes, but they don't know how to hear. Why? They're so messed up with religious ideologies, or they're lost in their own carnal trouble, or their own, we call it stinking thinking or whatever. So, you know, that's why I'm not discouraged or disappointed always. Sometimes I am by small groups or smaller groups. I'm not, because I know that what we are doing and what we are saying has eternal essence branded in it and on it. This stuff, many times that I'm saying, yes, it comes out of a whole lifetime of searching and digging and studying, but it ain't me. This some stuff is beyond me. You'd have to know me. I mean, really, I am that scoundrel that rides on a motorcycle that's, you know, well, anyway. I won't get into all that. That was the fleshly, carnal Lynn, the guy that many times you get trapped thinking that we're that. So, Joseph dreamed a dream. Now this, when you start going through the scriptures, you begin to see how the dreams so closely relates to image, because what we will see the dream taking us back to is we'll see the dream taking us back to the will of the powers. What was Joseph's dream about? Right back to the will of the powers. He went back and he told his daddy and he told his brother, and they said, oh, and his daddy and his brothers represented the will of powers. And you cannot get by it, you can't get around it, you can't discard it, it's just simply plain out there. Now go with me to another place, the book of Daniel. Now this is beautiful. Someday I'm going to turn loose and I'm going to do an exegesis on the entire book of Daniel, and it will be a stem winder, I promise you. It's going to be I did that with the book of Ezekiel one time years ago, and someone asked me again to go back and redo the book of Ezekiel, because the title of the book of Ezekiel is Man, Adam. The entire book of Ezekiel is about man. I don't care if he saw a wheel in a wheel. I don't care if he had a Merkabah carrying this to that. It's still, the title of the book of Ezekiel is man. In other words, it is totally about you, and it's totally written in mystical language. When you read the book of Revelation, all the book of Revelation is a compilation of the mystical teachings from both Hindu, Buddhist, Egyptian, and Hebrew, and they draw heavily from the Hebrew book of Ezekiel, the Hebrew book of Daniel, and I know I studied these books. I used to teach and preach these things right out of Date's college courses, and knew them and did them that way, and then I said, it don't make sense. It don't fit. It don't fit with the truth. It fits with the comprehension of a carnal mind. And the more I began to see that, it gave me a basis to start from. But the more I began to see it, the more I began to get clearer on what it was referring to. See it. So with me over here is the book of Daniel. And I want to read about this character right here. Y'all familiar with this book, right? Yeah, everybody's familiar with the book of Daniel. So the book of Daniel, what is it? 12 to 14 chapters. It's a very, very short book, 12 chapters. And it is such a powerful little book. So much in it. Chapter 2, it says, and the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. Same thing that happened to Joseph. And if you remember, Joseph's dream was about the 12 astrological wheels. Nebuchadnezzar's dream is exactly the same way. And it should begin to give us an indication as to what dreams are, more where they're coming from. Where are dreams coming from? They're coming outside you, aren't they? They're coming beyond you. They are beyond you. They're far beyond you. Why? Because they are energy from the will of power. Go back and look at Joseph. Daniel's right here. Nebuchadnezzar. Let me read you first. Nebuchadnezzar. Let me see if I can find Nebuchadnezzar in this book. Here we go. Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's name actually means chief protector, or he comes from Nebo, the original fire. And the word Nebuchadnezzar means Nebo, chief protector, and may mean Nebo, protect, etc. He was the Lord of brightness. Okay, and I understand Nebo was a Babylonian king. I realize that in our religious training that Nebo had the Israelite people in captivity, bondage, and all these kinds of things. I realize all of those things. So, but Nebo is a hero in this, but Nebo is you. Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is you. So here, let me give you this. This is what he means. Nebuchadnezzar represents the emotional child of nature. You get that? There's not one of us that in my dream I'm not stimulated emotionally. Period. Not one. You have to understand what happens when your emotions get stimulated. When your emotions get stimulated, your two internal senses come alive. Many times your two internal senses aren't used so much during the day or during activities because your 5 outward senses are so engaged in your living life. Right? Now, it's actually hard many times to engage your two internal senses unless you purposefully do it. But when you're asleep, you do not have your 5 external senses engaged. You have your 2 internal senses. And so that's why he says Nebo, or Nebuchadnezzar, represents the emotional child of nature. Because how many of you remember in a lot of your dreams have that childish energy about them. I can do anything. I'm innocent. I can jump over a wall and leap over a building. And I'm Superman. Hallelujah. I'm Superwoman. I'm Wonder Woman. I'm all of these things. But also in the dream, just as a child. How many of you remember as a child, they turn the lights off, and sometime when you're 4 or 5, you've heard a horror story and you're afraid to step off the bed because there's a booger or a bear under the bed. Y'all never experienced that. Those fears. Well, you got to remember now, listen to this. The dream, what is the dream doing? The dream is activating your 2 internal senses, which those 2 internal senses are like this. They are the caduceus on the pole, on the pole of your backbone, and they are beginning to activate that DNA code that's inside you, that's in touch with all of the glandular connections in your body, that every one of those glands are a major drugstore in itself, and it can release things in your body to heal and to comfort and to strengthen and to do repair work on your physical body. Thus becomes the purpose of a dream. Why? The purpose of a dream is take you right back to your image. Why? Because your image was drawn from the Elohim. The picture of who you are. It's amazing how we can have 2 different words and not even be familiar with them and associate them together. But they are. They're both so powerfully linked. Nebuchadnezzar also represents the emotional child of nature who wants to fulfill all of the desires of the soul. It's tapping into that deep energy of your heart, the deposit of God as your being, to fulfill the desires of the soul, whether they are good for him or not. Why? Because the child has got a little bit of a non-fearful, inquisitive attitude, don't he? They ain't afraid to try something or do something. Whether they're good for him or not. The world is full of Nebuchadnezzar people, and we call many of these people psychics. That's the metaphysical dictionary. Y'all wonder what I got quote that from. metaphysical dictionary. So, let's look at Daniel and see what Daniel says about Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And we'll kind of wind down on this and just disconnect here from this. Look at this in verse chapter 2 and verse 36. This is the dream. Verse 36. This is the dream. And we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. You, O king, are the King of kings. For the God of heaven hath given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, the fowls of the heaven, hath he given into your hand. He hath made you ruler over them all. It almost sounds like a repeat of Genesis 1, where God says, I built you, I now have empowered you, and now I give you dominion, and I command you to go out and have dominion and conquer it all. Sounds that way, don't it? Kind of like that, in a way. Hath given you given into your hand, and hath made you the ruler over all. You are this head of gold. Now you have to understand what we're going to do here with this head of gold is we're going to come into four, in this dream we're going to come into 4 divisions, aren't we? Y'all remember that? And anytime you see the word 4 again, the Hebrew dalet, number 4, which is kind of like a 7, like our 7, number 4, dalet or delete. Anytime you see the number 4 again, what are we talking about when we're talking about delete? We're talking about yod, hey, vav, hey. We're talking about carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. We're talking about fire, earth, air, water. All of the ingredients that the soul is deposited into, and the spirit itself fail, die, or come into through the breath of that baby, all of these are referring to the physical world. Every one. Who he said, you're the head of gold. Verse 39, and after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to you, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all of the earth, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. And of course, when you draw this man up, and that's how I used to do, I would draw him up right here. You know, he's got a head of gold, and then he's silver, and then he's brass, and then he's iron and clay. So again, and you put those different things in these 4 corners of the astrological wheel, and you see that they perfectly. These feet of brass and clay right here is the fishes. The fishes represents your feet. Right here is your head. It represents the throne room of God, where the gold, the divine essence of God is at. So, you know, just put it in there on your own. You can see it. It's just simply there. So what's this dream? This dream's rooted and based in the Lord of hosts, in the astrological wheel, in the divine powers, the resources. So what's the dream doing? The dream is drawing off of all of this, not just one of it. Even though, you know, you may have a part in your dream, and that part in your dream may be down in here somewhere in one of your lower extremities. And that's okay. Maybe that dream is working in that extremity. And maybe in that extremity. And if we learn this wheel, I hope this would encourage a lot of people, more people, to study their astrological chart and get more familiar with their place in the wheel of powers, and quit looking at it like it's of the devil. You better watch out, the booger man will get you. It's of God. It is God. It is God. Lord, hallelujah. It is God. There's nothing more or nothing less that it could possibly be than it is God. Let me give you one other verse, and we'll just unhook right here and call it a morning. Chapter 4, look at this with me. Verse 17. Well, verse 14. Let's read this. It says, and he cried aloud, and he said thus, hew down the tree, cut off the branches, and shake off the leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the beast get away from under it, and the fowls from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of the roots in the earth. even with a band of iron and brass in the tender grasses of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the grass of the earth, and let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. You can remember, this is another dream. It's a story of another dream. Verse 17, this matter is by the decree of the watchers. The decree, actually this Hebrew word, the decree, it actually means that it's a decision of the watchers. Well, who are the watchers? It's another word for the hosts. The watchers are the hosts. As a matter of fact, if you read the book of Enoch, the book of Enoch is a book of signs and symbols only written for those initiated into the mysteries. It's not a book for religious people to read. You had no business reading the book of Enoch unless you understand the signs and the symbols and see what the signs and symbols are saying in mythical, metaphorical, mysterious language. Because you see, it's in the mythical, metaphysical, mysterious language that God hid all of his secrets. And all of those secrets are hid as the decree. That word decree means God's decision. It actually is a word for God's ordinance. And that is a definite decree and a definite ordinance unto you. That's a result of a part of the dream that you and I have. I said I'd just close with that verse, but I need to, I got to write it. Change it. I'm sorry. Look at me, Isaiah 45. Because that leads to another passage of Scripture, Ecclesiastes. Let's just go to Isaiah first, real quickly. Isaiah 45, especially on the decree of the watchers. This decree of the watchers, this ordinance as a part of the dream, this is a part of the dream that you're having. I realize most of your dreams are bizarre. Most of them are. Mine are. Mine are really weird sometimes, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes I think, well, I think I had a dream last night. I think I did. Maybe I did. Probably did, just don't remember. Isaiah 45, look at this right here. Verse 3, let's just use this one verse. And I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of the secret places. There's your dream. The hidden riches of the secret places. You see, let me just share this with you. In the Hebrew, there is not one word for mystery. It's not there. As a matter of fact, there's no Hebrew word for mystery. But now there is a Hebrew word for secret. And the Hebrew word for secret is olam. O-L-A-M. Olam. That's the word for secret. But in Hebrew, the word olam, secret, actually means that it's the ordinances or it's the decrees that are given to you as an initiate to unveil the secrets. That's what's happening right here. Things that you know that you didn't know. Did you ever know? You know a lot of things you don't know. As a matter of fact, you know everything. And that's exactly what he's saying. He said, there is a deposit of treasure. That word treasure actually simply means money. You can go to the book of Ecclesiastes. I think it's Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Maybe it's verse 11 or 17. I'm not perfect, but it's close there. But it says this very clearly. Money is the answer to everything. Matter of fact, let's just go to the book of Ecclesiastes. Because I want to show you something over here in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. I'll read this in Hebrew about this word. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 11. It says, and he hath made everything beautiful. Remember that little song? Everything is beautiful in the whole world. It is. It's ugly sometimes, but it's beautiful. Now watch this. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he hath set the olam. King James translates this word olam for world. Which ain't bad, that's okay. But olam, what does olam mean? It means the secret. It's exactly how it's used right there in Isaiah where we were just at.
What verse are you?
Verse 11. Chapter 3, verse 11. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he hath set the world. It's the word olam. And I'll tell you another way the word olam is translated. Heart. Where does he say it's at? Right here in this translation. He said, I set the world in your heart. The heart, not the pumper. I'm not talking about that cardiac muscle. I'm not talking about that thing pushing blood. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the heart. Actually, the heart, if you were to take the brain out of your body, and if you just jerk the brain right out of your body, what you think that you would pull out is just this big round thing up here. That is not true. If you pulled your brain out, you wouldn't just pull this big round thing on the top of your head. You would pull out the entire column of your neck and your spinal column all the way down, and 360 something million, I think 365 million nerves that go out your whole body. That's one. That's your heart. Your heart is just not here pumping. Your heart goes from here all the way to the tips of your toes. It is your entire nervous system. That's your heart. It's not just your head. But if you pull it out, you pull out everything. Because that's one. And there are some analogical books, and I do have quite a few different ones that show me these different things when I'm looking at them, or I'm researching, or I'm trying to figure out what it's saying or what I'm seeing by what it's saying to me. I find some that do show what I'm telling you for the heart, referring to the very core. That's the core of your being. That's the kundalini. That's the caduceus. The ancients knew this. The caduceus is not a brand new symbol that the doctors finally concocted and said, well, let's call this symbol of the two serpents, the caduceus, let's call this the sign of the medical degree. So there's not one medical degree that you get that don't have this caduceus on it. You know, some of them come to the top up here with a head with wings, some eagles, which is good, and that's true. That's an ancient symbol. Why? That's what you're doing at night. You're tapped into your heart, and you're flying, aren't you? Because you have wings of the eagle. You can soar. You're just like the eagle. You're a most powerful being. So these secrets that are in your heart are connected to your dreams, that are connected to your image, that's connected to God. So while you're right here in Ecclesiastes in closing, go to Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Go to Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Verse 19. This is the King James translation. A feast is made for laughter, and wine and scotch make merry. I'm sorry, that's a little addition. Yeah, that's a little Lynn Hayes. It's pretty close though. I mean, it has a little Hebrew in it. And money answers all things. So I just let you see that so you didn't think I was making it up.
Ecclesiastes, what was that last one?
And money answers all
But I
things.
mean, what is the verse altogether?
Oh, that's Ecclesiastes chapter 10. I believe that was verse 11, wasn't it? Chapter 19. I'm sorry. Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 19.
The Moffat says, men feast for merrymaking, and they drink for revelry, and money does it all.
Whew, okay.
Wow.
Hallelujah. Is that good? I mean,
That's very good.
Hallelujah.
It is very good.
I want to ask you something. the scripture that says,
Cameras off.
man shall not
No,
live
it's
by
on.
bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth. To me, the word, the preceding word is that emanation. You
It's a-
cannot write the word of God down.
Yeah.
It cannot be written, because it's the energy, the life of it is in that emanation. What would you call the bread? Is the bread the physical things and the word is the spiritual things? You cannot live in the physical world alone, but you have to partake of the spirit. How would you see that scripture?
I would see it this way. Bread is always, you have two symbols in the ancient Hebrew. Bread, which comes from wheat, which always symbolizes the physical manifest world. Wine, which is the life juice squeezed out of the grape, always represents the divine life and the essence, and it's the marrying of the two. It's the two
Yeah, but this
merging.
is not talking about wine. It's just talking
I know
about the
it. I know
bread
it,
and the
but
word.
the bread, man shall not live by bread alone. He ain't not just going to live by the physical substance.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Not just live by
Agree.
this out here. You know, it's just like we're looking at too, the breatharians, you know, the breatharians drawing strength and life and energy, and some of them, I don't know any personal, I've just seen YouTube incidents where some of them live 20, 30 years and never have eaten any food whatsoever. They extract their food out of breath, out of the air, out of the substance. Now, the physical body is designed to draw energy from the physical world. You know, a good pork chop every now and then don't hurt nothing.
And
That's
there's
Lynn, that's just Lynn Hayes talking.
so you could say the written word is a physical thing. It's ink and bamboo sheets.
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
pasteboard or leather, whatever it is. You cannot live by reading the Bible alone, because it says in it you think you find life, but you don't, because the life is in the emanation from God, the
Absolutely.
energy, that word, the real word, the word you can't write down.
Yes,
But
yes, I agree. Matter of fact,
that oneness that you get from meditation on the word is that wheel within the wheel that connects you to all of the posts.
yeah, every time you do that, you're exactly right. Every time you're spinning the wheel of fortune, every time you know, we were talking, where were we talking? We was somewhere, I can't remember, we was talking, oh yeah, we was up here, we was talking with Jeff. And you can actually, there are different breathing methods that you can get yourself kind of in a state of no mind. You can do this one. This one will get you there real quick. If you do it, practice it, and I don't recommend it, but you can do it, but don't do it long.
Yeah.
Through your nose.
Yes.
In and out, in and out, in and out. And it won't take you long, probably not even a minute. Until I'm a little bit swingy headed already. You can be drunk. You can get, and you can get plumb out of it. Off breath. Just off breath.
But when you understand that you are God, okay, that every part of you is God, you are what's in you, not what this is. That everything, I don't even look at, there's a universe out here. I'm connected in here, is the way I feel about it.
Right. You are the universe, you're saying.
Right.
And I think medical science has proven it more and more and more, that so far they have gone way out with telescopes, and yet they have found that there's more inside you, and the deeper they go, the deeper it gets, and the more it begins to expound. They realize that the universe of me, the universe of self,
Right.
the universe of you, is as vast as this one out here. So that makes the miniature cosm as vast as the universal cosm.
Yeah. I think this will this will enter that.
It's the same thing. It is that.
Yeah.
It's that condensed.
Right.
And so when you're through with it, it just goes right back into this substance world, but what lifes it goes right back to that source of universe that it is.
Right. When we get into, when we get out of the physical into the essence, we're right back there.
Yes, the soul is designed to be in the physical world and to be one with the ego self, so that the soul, without judgment or condemnation, can experience all of the joys, pains, victories, defeats, any and everything the physical world can give it, without judgment and without condemnation. The Spirit comes in to life it and empower it during all of those events without judgment and without condemnation. Period. And see, we have this idea by religion that this Spirit, i.e. God, is setting up on some kind of a huge throne with a scaffold in his hand, and every time you do it, buddy, he comes down the scaffold, I got you, and I got it wrote down. And I'm going to call you in record on account of it. That's bull. That is literally bull. God does not keep in remembrance any one thing. You know why? God don't live in any past or any future. God is only present all the time.
Yeah.
The soul can engage in past and future because the soul has been designed to the egoic condition of the world. So you have a conundrum with your spirit soul. You have your spirit that never remembers what you did and not takes into account what you're going to do. But you have the soul that can, because it's just exactly like your ego self. But it's without any judgment and without any condemnation. This whole idea of a judgmental God is religion.
Amen.
It is just...
So, do you think the soul is actually the Akashic record that they're talking about?
Yes, the soul does carry the Akashic record, absolutely. And here's another thing, since you brought that up. The soul, if you have, and we do have, here's where karma comes in. Karma has nothing to do with the seed sown. Seeds that sown bear fruits, which are results of the seeds that are sown. And so when you sow seeds in a physical dimension and your life has expanded, those seeds either brought results or they died dormant just like they are, and they do not go with you because they are not eternal. They are not timeless. They're in time. However, the soul and karma takes those events. The soul does record and have memory. So when you pass from this world into the next world, yes, your soul will carry the memory of many of the events that you had. Many of them were painful. And if you want to see a perfect example of what I'm talking about, watch the movie that we watched yesterday. And I don't want to sit here and blubber like a baby, including Kirby. And you'll see what I'm saying. Karma is simply a pain you carry from a past life that hadn't been resolved. And many people, children, come in with huge pains from past experiences that aren't resolved. Living this life in this material world is a time of resolution. It's a time to resolve. It's a time to you to settle issues, and you are empowered to settle those issues. You are. We're empowered ourselves to look at them and judge them. Judge them as they don't harm me or they did harm me. And if they did harm me, I can say, okay, it's settled. I release you. I'm finished.
That's right.
And you're healed. And guess what? You don't have to bring that back on the wheel of karma. I said that with passion because I'm really passionate about this whole idea. There's such a screwed up mentality about karma and sowing seeds. Karma ain't got nothing to do with the seeds that you sow. The seeds you sow, you get results. And if you haven't got results, that's okay. The seed died unborn. Jesus gives us a perfect illustration. Matthew chapter 4. He said, some of them are sown on the rock. They can't get root. They don't go nowhere.
That's what I learned and what was so beautiful in this oneness. You learn that you are actually Christ on the bema seat of your karma.
Yeah.
In other words, you judge yourself. Every individual judges himself. He is the Christ for himself. That's why God made it this way.
That's why Jesus said in the book of Revelations, 21st chapter, Jesus said this. He said, I will grant you to sit on my throne and on your throne as I overcame and you overcome. Well, what in the world are you overcoming? You're overcoming the karmic conditions.
That's right.
You're dismissing the pain, which is the word for sin. That's the better word for sin is pain.
Right.
And that's why Jesus looked out at the crowd and he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Why? They're doing it out of pain. They're not doing it because they're scarred and got scarred because they're born here scarred. It's not true. It's because of pain. And when we see that, you know how you view humanity when you see it that way? You view it through the eye of compassion. You might not like what they're doing. Matter of fact, you probably won't.
You can't be mad at him.
But you do, yeah, I say that, you're right. You see them through the eye of compassion. You know what? You could do it this way and say, were it not for the grace of God.
Yes,
there no-
amen.
Yeah.
All flesh is alike.
I'm not beyond that.